So thank you very much for the opportunity to speak with you today and the invitation to speak. My name is Fouad Elgindy, as mentioned, and I'm working with the Networks of Centers of Excellence. I've been with the NCE Programs and Secretariat for the last 7 years. Before that, I was actually working within one of the networks, which was a recipient from the NCE, so I've seen it from both sides. But I hope to kind of share some of the knowledge and expertise that I have in the program. Mind you, I'm not an expert in food for health, but hopefully you can see some of the connection points in our programming that can tie in with some of the work that you're doing and the collaborations that you're talking about. So the mandate of the NCE is to mobilize Canada's research talent in the academic, private, and public sectors, and to apply it to the task of developing economy and quality of life for Canadians. Now, this is an important mandate that was established back in 1989 when the program first started. And as part of this mandate, we've created a number of different program elements which can actually work together to be able to fill in a continuum of innovation within Canada. So how do we achieve the mandate? Excuse me. We start by stimulating leading-edge research within Canada. We build on the nationwide partnerships that are available and international partnerships and the linkages for those. We develop and retain world-class personnel, create innovative knowledge and technology transfer. So we'll talk about technology transfer and bridge into some of the earlier talks we had today. Manage research resources and programs, focus on key social and economic challenges, commercialize and apply homegrown technologies for more breakthroughs, increase private sector R&D, and of course train highly qualified personnel, which I'll refer to as HQP. Now, when we first started, and back in 1989, the Government of Canada established a governance for the NCE program. And so the idea was to bring together the three granting agencies to work collaboratively on these tri-agency type programs. And the NCE programming is one of those collaborative tri-agency type programs. But it's not only the granting agencies that are a part of this. We also have involvement from Industry Canada and Health Canada, which help shape the policy that dictates our programs in terms of S&T priority areas, as well as some of the funding mechanisms that we follow. And these inputs at the highest levels of the granting agencies and at the deputy minister levels of Industry Canada and Health Canada form our steering committee, which makes the decisions on our programs and the funding going forward for the different recipients. Now, those inputs are actually provided as recommendations from our granting agency review committees, and we have a few standing committees. So one is the Private Sector Advisory Board, which deals with some of our more commercial-oriented type programming, and we also have the Standing Selection Committee, which feeds into some of our more academic-led network type programs as well. The steering committee delegates responsibilities to the staff to deliver the programming, which is where the NCE senior program managers and deputy directors fit in. And then we support the independent networks and centers that we fund through our programming. So looking a little bit at the program history of the NCE, the Networks of Centers of Excellence program was established in 1989, so now we're into our 27th year about, 26th, 27th year. And that program was the basis for all of our other programming that came out. It was a program that tried to capture as much of the innovation landscape in Canada, but we found that we could actually refine certain areas of that innovation landscape by creating other programming from that spins out of the NCE program. So in 2005, we created a knowledge mobilization initiative, which was actually started as, it was called the New Initiative in 2005, and then evolved to the Knowledge Mobilization Initiative in 2010. From the budget allocations from the Government of Canada, we received programming for the Centers of Excellence for Commercialization and Research, which is short-formed as the CSER program, the Business-Led Networks of Centers of Excellence program, and the Industrial R&D Internship program. Now, the Canada-India Research Centre of Excellence Initiative was something that was a pilot. It's still ongoing right now. There's only one recipient and only has been one competition, so I won't focus too much on that, or the internship program, because that one we specifically work with MyTax to deliver our internships. But I'll focus on the other programs which you can access through our different competitions, and I'll touch a little bit on what those competitions actually look like. So this is a very crude representation of kind of the innovation continuum within Canada. So looking at one end, you have the granting agencies, which are building a support basis through the discovery and type blue sky research that they fund. Moving forward, you see that more solution-driven research, and then of course moving always towards the knowledge translation. So I'll just come into those a little bit more detail. So the tri-agency programming that fills the basis for our NCE program is really that foundation that without it, we wouldn't be able to create these networks, because we seek the most experienced and recognized experts within Canada to be able to be the leadership and the driving force behind all of these networks and centers. So without that discovery research and identifying those superstars of research, it's difficult for our program to build the traction and build a network around those individuals. So this is the foundation that the granting agencies provide for the next steps of our programming. Now, in terms of solution-driven research, there's the earlier stage, which focuses the research towards a target or an application. From that earlier stage, you see some successful results coming out of the research, and then the efforts to actually synthesize the knowledge and create this more applied focus, targeting it to the later knowledge translation aspects. So focusing on the knowledge translation, we have the mobilization of knowledge, commercialization, private sector implementation or optimization for the private sector, and of course prototype development. So all of these, the track or the continuum for this innovation landscape is always moving towards this knowledge translation, because ultimately all of our programs are looking to benefit Canada. And in order to do that, the research has to get out of the lab. So you can see here how the NCE programming actually fits to that Canadian research innovation landscape. So the NCE program is our longest standing program, and as it was created to kind of span as much of this continuum as possible. So it starts really at the early stage research and funds that early stage research, takes those researchers and research ideas through the process of knowledge translation and partnering with different network partners, all the way to the point of mobilization and commercialization. So we see the NCE program probably spans some of the largest and most involving parts of this research continuum. Now, with the release of the business-led program, the focus of the business-led program is really engaging private sector, and it's about solving private sector challenges over the next 5 to 10 years. So the business-led program funds research, but the research is very much oriented towards solutions to those challenges of the private sector. And it carries forward to see those solutions implemented within the private sector. So it spans a little bit beyond the NCE program, but doesn't start as early as the early stage research. The Knowledge Mobilization Program is one of the unique programs that the government looks to apply to get more bang out of our buck. So what's the premise for the Knowledge Mobilization Program is actually that the research has already been completed. And now we're at the stage to move knowledge throughout the next stages of that process. So what we see in the newer models of knowledge translation is that it's incorporated throughout all of the research process to get knowledge translation started from the beginning of research. But the Knowledge Mobilization Program looks to capitalize on some of that research that hasn't been mobilized yet or needs greater mobilization to hit more communities or a greater number of end users. So that program is focused much later in the stage and picks up really at the knowledge synthesis area and moves into the mobilization side. The CSER program, or the Centers of Excellence for Commercialization and Research, doesn't include any research component. It's more so in the R&D space, it's on the development side. And so it focuses more so in the knowledge translation, particularly in the area of commercialization. And what I'll do now is I'll just break into each of the programs to discuss them each a little bit more, in a little bit more detail. So starting with the NCE program, we currently have 14 active networks, and these networks are generally academic-led. They all focus around building a network of different universities that partner together to solve a large challenge that otherwise one research team or one group couldn't do. And these areas are multidisciplinary in research, so we try to, being a tri-agency type program, we try to bring together the natural sciences and engineering, the social sciences and humanities, and the Canadian Institutes for Health Research type researchers, bring them all together to tackle a challenge from multifacets. They engage partners from multiple academic institutions, so being networks and Canadian-wide networks, we look for them to try and reach out into all areas of Canada and involve academic institutions that are engaged in each one of these areas. They train the next generation of highly qualified personnel, so one of the criteria of our program is HQP training, and they must develop HQP programs to engage in the next generation of scientists. working with end users to put knowledge to use quickly, so that's more of the knowledge translation mobilization side, and increasing collaboration between Canada and international partners as well. Now, just a snapshot of the scale of some of our networks in terms of what we fund. The average award over a life of a network is about $54 million, and that could take place over 1, 2, or 3 terms. Each one of those terms is about 5 years, so that could be anywhere from, and this is just the average, so it all depends on how long the life of the network is. Average contributions over the network, so in cash and in-kind contributions, we see about $35 million infused into the network through partner support. So we encourage, and certainly it's not a matching fund program, but the leveraging that the partners are able to bring to the table demonstrate the necessity of the research that's being conducted and the ability of the network to be able to move that research out to benefit them. In terms of the number of researchers, network investigators, we see about 60 joining the network per year. Some of them do fall off, so over the full life cycle of a term, we'll say, we see about 220 researchers joining a network at any one point. And then the number of HQP that we see engaged is about 270 HQP. Now for institutions, these are different research institutions across the country, so whether they're universities, hospitals, or research institutes, we see about 30 engaging in these networks. So how a network works. I just want to spend a few minutes here just to go through the mechanics of a network, because it's really hard to visualize how a virtual network connects all of these pieces, puts the money to the right place, and then is able to deliver solutions. So it's not the easiest thing to read, but I'll walk through each of these steps. So in terms of the contributors, the Government of Canada is obviously one of the contributors to the program, and we provide significant financial support. But we also expect that the stakeholders coming into the program are also bringing in ideas and strategy on areas that they see the most need in terms of now those contributions all go through an administrative center, which is actually funded through the program. We fund a complete administrative center and staff that can body that administrative center. And they provide support to a board of directors and a research management committee. And these groups make decisions on the strategy of the network, where the network will dedicate its funds, and who to engage within the network through a competitive process. This is actually the step where the network has the most autonomy. So the government provides the funding, and we provide support in the form of liaisons to work with each of the networks, but really it's the community and the individuals that the network self-selects to participate on those board of directors to then shape and direct the actual research that takes place within the network. So the government isn't calling the shots here. We're only holding the purse and making sure that the money's being spent in the right way. Now they select different thematic areas, and those thematic areas have network investigators and members that work within the network as well. So that's where the research actually takes place. And there's cross-collaboration across the themes as well as within each of the themes. We expect that type of networking to happen and to build more robust solutions going forward. So each of them produce research results, which then the board of directors and through the administrative center amalgamates into certain ideas and outputs that actually go back to stakeholders and contributors to feed in to answer some of the questions that they put forward at the earliest stage. And then that generates impacts which ultimately will benefit Canada, and the loop continues. So after the outcomes take place and then you start consulting with the stakeholders throughout the process, they have different ideas or different areas that they want to see the network focus on, and the network is in a position to be able to identify the importance of those. These here are our 5 NCE program criteria. Each one of them is weighted equally within the program, and we look for specific strategic plans in the application stage to see that each of those are going to be addressed throughout the life cycle of the network and evaluate the quality of those. This here is just the tools that you'll be using as a network to be able to engage with the different partners. So it's different funding agreements, communication tools, and then knowledge mobilization that takes place. So just to give you a snapshot of our NCE competition, this is the last NCE competition that we ran. It's a highly competitive process. So we had 83 letters of intent come in to the program. From those, the Standing Selection Committee selected 10 applications to go to full application, and it's an incredibly arduous process. There are long applications, so we don't want to invite too many to have too many people do all of the work when we're only going to be selecting a few, but it also is a lot of work for our reviewers. So we trimmed down the number to be about 50% in terms of success rate once you get to the full application stage. Networks that we funded in the last competition were 4. We allocated $115 million over 5 years, and that breaks down to about almost $29 million per network over 5 years. And we anticipate the next competition will be taking place in spring of 2017. So now just to switch gears a little bit, I'm going to briefly talk about the BLNC program. Currently we have 5 active BLNC networks. So these are the networks that actually respond directly to problems within the Canadian industrial sector. So the industry comes together at the same table and says, these are challenges that we cannot solve on our own, and we don't want to pay to solve on our own. So we want to bring everyone to the table that's going to be engaged in the solution, and the government actually puts in half of the dollars for that research. So we allow funding to private sector partners, and they can fund them directly. So this is one of the unique programs of the granting agencies where you can actually fund private sector research taking place. Research can always take place within the universities as well, but this program allows the flexibility to fund private sector. It increases private sector investment in Canada, trains the next generation of skilled researchers, creates and retains companies within Canada, and then of course accelerates the translation of research into products and services because the private sector is there along with you to do the research. They're the ones that will take it up and put it into their products right away. Some program considerations, it's really focused on solving private sector challenges over the next 5 to 10 years. So it has to be a short-term gain for the private sector, but there's a 50% match required on the research. So half of the dollars for the research have to come in from other sources from the non-NCE funds. And then we match the administration as well. So there has to be 25% match on the administrative dollars. The NCE program will cover 75%. Private sector is eligible grant recipients, and it's renewable once for an additional 5 years. So you can get 10 years of funding through this program to fund private sector type endeavors. Now here's a snapshot of our recent competition. We had 54 letters of notifications of intent, and the NC Secretariat worked closely with applicants to make sure that they fell within the eligibility of the program. So of those 54, 33 self-selected to submit letters of intent. The Private Sector Advisory Board then invited 8 applications to submit full applications, and we funded 4 different business-led networks. So that competition was valued at about almost $50 million over 5 years, which breaks down to about $12.5 million for each of the networks. And the anticipated competition for the next BLNC is in the fall of 2017, so that's coming up soon. Now the Knowledge Mobilization Initiative. This one actually is one of our newer initiatives because it's been a rejuvenation of the new initiative that we launched in 2005. But it focuses primarily on the later stages, so that doesn't actually fund any research, and you'll see that when I talk about the budget in terms of what the funding is available for. It's more so on the knowledge mobilization type activities. So it supports national and international networks between knowledge users, producers, and for the benefit of Canada's social, health, and economic development. And it enables knowledge mobilization type activities. So this creates the dialogue or the framework for the dialogue, has the same type of administrative structure with a board of governors as well as an administrative center, but all of this is focused around moving the knowledge forward. The scale of a KM network, it's about $1.2 million over the term, 1.2 to 1.6 million because it's a 4-year grant for about $400,000 each. Number of partners per network lifecycle is 95. You can't see it because it fell off. And the number of HQP is about 72 per network. And the average number of institutions participating is about 19, and those are different researchers within their academic context. And just a snapshot of the recent competition that we ran. The notification of intent stage was 141 received. Letters of intent received were about 86. Applications invited to submit full applications were only 7 of those 86, and we actually only funded 2 networks. Now, it's a really low number. We were actually expecting to fund more, but the issue that we found, and it echoes Heather's point, that not a lot of knowledge mobilization and KT has really been understood by the communities applying. So a lot of the applications that were coming in sort of missed the mark on knowledge KTEE as well as knowledge mobilization. So of the networks that came in, we saw 2 that had very promising leads in knowledge mobilization, but there's lots of room for improvement. And this is a very young program, so we're still seeing lots of applications come in, but the recipe for knowledge mobilization is still kind of ripe for the picking. So if people are interested, I would definitely encourage you to look into this program and see. Unfortunately, for the next competition, it's still to be determined because this actually shares the same budget from the NCE program. So we look for opportunities within the NCE program in the budget to be able to fund these types of knowledge mobilization networks. And the last program I'm going to touch on is the CSER program. So this one here is actually now our largest standing program. We have 23 active centers within the CSER program. And the CSER program focuses on facilitating partnership, collaboration, providing access to research expertise and equipment, building regional clusters or technology experience, training mentors and entrepreneurs, incubating startups. These are all different models that we see for the various CSERs. And the flexibility in the CSER program is that you can promote any model in terms of commercialization as long as you meet some of the program targets, which I'll talk about in the next slide. Offering flexible business models to tailor the needs of each industrial sector, advancing research to add value to technology, and providing financial support from microloans to equity investment. And these centers are actually regionally focused. So they're not national in scope, but we look for pockets of excellence within Canada for the area that's ripe to be able to create one of these commercialization centers, which then will take the research that's happening within the area and be able to move it forward into product or economic development. So for some of the program considerations for the CSER program, as I mentioned, it's regionally focused. It is also a matching fund program, so the matching funds on the commercialization have to be about 50%, but they can be made up from provincial dollars. It's only 50% match cannot come from federal sources, but you can engage the provinces, and with the regional focus of some of these CSERs, we see a lot of CSERs actually engaging provinces on this. 25% matching on the operating costs as well. So there is an administrative component to it. You are creating a center, so that we cover much of the costs that actually go into creating that, including the administration and the salary support. Centers must achieve sustainability within the grant term. So this is the finish line, really, for the CSER program. If you can demonstrate that you have a good plan towards sustainability, you are a strong proponent for the program. If sustainability is a sort of a loosely tangible type metric that you're trying to measure against, that'll be kind of the nail in the coffin for an application. So sustainability is critical to this program, and you must be striving towards sustainability. And then applicants set the term required to achieve that sustainability. So there is flexibility in the timing that you need, the runway, to be able to achieve that type of sustainability. And it's complementary to CFI funding. So this isn't a program to build a center. We don't actually do the bricks and mortars type things that CFI does, but we're complementary to it in the fact that we provide the administrative support and the creation of the actual internal side of the center. And here's a snapshot of our recent competition. This is actually our second last competition. We're currently in a competition right now, which will be concluding probably in the next couple of months. But in our last competition, we saw 52 notifications of intent. From those, down to 34 actual letters of intent coming in for the competition. 11 applications were invited to full proposal, and 5 of those were funded. Now, the funding envelope for that program, or for that competition, was about $68 million. Over the period of 5 years, and they each dictate their own time frame, but we allocate funding because we're government and we have certain envelopes of funding. We allocate funding each 5 years and then do reviews throughout that period. So each center got about $13.6 million, and we're anticipating another competition actually taking place in the fall of 2016. So that would be the runway. So that's kind of a snapshot of our programs, but if I can impart just a little bit of advice, I think, in terms of setting up one of these applications or trying to target the NCE type programs for an application, it's important to first engage your partners early, because what we see time and time again is that someone has a really great idea for a network, but they come forward with the idea and the letters of support aren't there, or that they don't have the traction with the public, with the private sector or the other groups, the end users, to be able to demonstrate that they really do have an idea that's novel and that's in demand from the community out there. So engaging your partners early, starting to think about an application, a year or 2 in advance, is a really good position to be in, because then you can actually, when a competition is called, the timelines are quite short and you'll be ready to deliver away. Second point I would say is engage the NCE. So we've moved into a role where we're trying to improve the quality of the applications that come in. We don't want applications to be eliminated for technical reasons or because your budget had a 0 when it should have had a 1. Or we're trying to avoid that as much as possible because we want to put to our committees the best quality applications that the community can come forward with. So you're there defending your ideas as a community versus defending why you have an ineligible expense within your budget. So engage the NCE Secretariat. We've seen hundreds of these applications come in. We've worked with applicants before. I would say definitely engaging us if you have an idea to apply to the program. And finally, it's hit or miss in terms of the competitions, but you can't wait for the competition to be launched, right? You just have to be ready to proceed, and then when the competition is launched, you find the fit to the program. And that's what we're here to help you with. So it's bringing the first 2 ideas in terms of being ready and working with the Secretariat to find the right fit to the program when the competition is launched. And so that's all I have in terms of the NCE programming. We've got a number of different programs that are launched. The government's looked at us in terms of a great avenue to be able to bring the communities together across the 3 granting agencies. So hopefully we'll see new programming launching from there, but certainly the suite that we have available is a good start for any academic community that's trying to build a basis within a given area, and the Food for Health is a great one. So.
Great presentation and very informative. So I just wanted a quick question around the priorities and how that's set through the NCE, and whether or not food and nutrition and health would fit those priorities.
Yep. So our priority areas for each of our competitions actually focus on the S&T priority areas of the government. So they set those priorities, which are the higher level priorities, and then we fit within those our programming. So in the last round of S&T priorities, there was health and related life sciences, there was natural sciences and, natural resources and energy. There was environmental sciences, and then information communication technologies. In one of the budgets, they added management, business, and finance. But in the new budget, they've actually got a number of different areas that include manufacturing, I believe, is one of them as well. So we focus on those higher level ones, but then look for interpretation within those to be able to find how applications fit. So in the case of food for health, certainly under the health mandate. And another important point is that we actually look for linkages between the granting agencies. So you can't be one granting agency only, right? You can't come in as a health organization and only be pulling on the health researchers and CIHR type activities. You have to be bringing all of the granting agencies together. Otherwise, it's not a tri-agency type program. So that's another important point.
Thanks for the presentation. My question is how you evaluate the outcomes, the outputs, and the impacts of the networks at the midterm, at the point of renewal for the second go-round, and of the program overall.
So it's an excellent question. We actually, from the application stage, we're focused primarily on the process and the plan that you're putting together. So in terms of the outcomes that you're looking to hit or the goal of the network, we evaluate that at a broader level, but it's a lot about the process of how you're going to get there and whether or not your path there is going to work. Then we go through a process through these 5-year NCE type networks where we actually engage a monitoring committee to look year to year to see how well you're doing against your application. So we use the application as kind of the marker, and then the monitoring committee measures you against that marker over the period of 5 years. At the 5-year mark, because these are renewable twice, you then go through a full evaluation. So at that point, we look at what you've done in the first 5 years, how close you were to achieving your goals of your application in terms of your outcomes, and then what your plan is to go forward and how much of an impact you're going to have going forward. So really, in terms of how do we evaluate the outcomes, we leave it up to the community to decide what outcomes are important, and then we fund them based on the process of whether or not they're going to bring the greatest benefit to Canada, and how likely is it that the network is going to achieve these outcomes within the runway that they've provided themselves.
And how much emphasis do you place on commercialization versus knowledge advancement?
So in terms of the NCE program, and that one I'm speaking to primarily because that's our longest standing program, that program focuses on both knowledge mobilization and commercialization. Originally, when the program was launched, we had this goal, this kind of lofty goal of every network that we're going to fund has to be sustainable after 15 or 16 years. Didn't happen. We haven't seen a lot of examples of sustainability within our programming on the NCE side. So what we look for at the end of an NCE is legacy, whether that comes through certain commercialization aspects that spin off into companies, or whether that's through the knowledge mobilization that has left an impact within a community, has informed Canadians. Those are the types of activities that we definitely look for in the longer term, but we look for that to take place over the lifetime of the grant as well. So it's not just you get into your third funding cycle and all of a sudden KM has to happen, right? It has to happen throughout, and that's how we evaluate you as well. So it's not about commercialization, unless you're talking about the commercialization-oriented programs, but in a lot of our programming, knowledge mobilization is at the same level as commercialization. Thank you.